In this video, I want to demonstrate a very basic approach to handling color in the digital world. However, if you really want to understand color, I strongly suggest you pick up a copy of Real-World Color Management by Bruce Fraser, Chris Murphy, and Fred Bunting. For my money, this is the best book on the subject, and it'll help you in your photography, as well as giving you an understanding of what you're seeing on the monitor or in the print. And you'll even pick up some information that'll help you with those pesky color issues when painting a model. The goal here is to develop a workflow that'll capture the maximum amount of information with the most accurate color rendition. Because there are so many variables on how an image is viewed, we need to be tied to a reliable control. For instance, you're sitting in front of your high-end color-calibrated monitor, and your room's painted in a perfectly neutral color. Your room lighting has a color rendering index of 94, and you have perfect color perception. Now you put that perfect image out on the web, and it gets viewed by someone that's half colorblind, sitting in front of an old bargain basement monitor that he has set up in the corner of a poorly lit workbench. Or worse yet, you hand the image off to Spud, the production manager who knows little or nothing about color process, working for a publication that prints on cheap paper. Because we can't control all these other variables, let's take a look at the best way to get the most accurate color rendition and maximum amount of information straight from the camera. Here I'm showing a typical DSLR histogram display. The bottom histogram is a luminance histogram, and it basically shows the distribution of the 256 shades of gray that are recorded by a digital camera. The upper three are color histograms, and they show the distribution of the red, green, and blue channels. Looking at these histograms, you can see that there's no digital information at the extreme ends. This means that all the information about the scene's been captured. When an image is under or overexposed, there'll be clipping at either end of the luminance histogram. Information that's been clipped is lost. Likewise, clipping in one of the color channels means loss of detail in that particular color. Watching the histogram in camera raw, you can see how the wrong color balance shifts the channels and can cause clipping. Proper white balance at the time of exposure is the best way to capture all the information and maintain the correct relationship between the three color channels. Rather than relying on auto or some manufacturer preset, the most accurate way to get the correct white balance is by using the camera's custom white balance function. This lets the camera analyze the color information from a neutral gray card exposed under the actual lighting and adjust the color balance to yield a neutral gray image. The camera stores this setting and uses it to adjust any further exposures. Again, using camera raw, you can get a good visualization of what the camera's doing. Since the image is of a neutral gray card, there should be equal amounts of red, green, and blue. The camera takes the information from each color channel and aligns it so that it yields a neutral gray for the specific light that's reflected from the card. This setting is stored so that any other subject exposed under this lighting will be properly balanced. This process is especially important if you're using your images directly from the camera. If you're going to be editing the image, what should you do with the color? In theory, nothing. But in reality, you may want to do some tweaking. However, if you don't trust the results from your camera's custom white balance, shoot a separate gray card exposure and use it as a reference for balancing your images in the processing. So you're that belt and suspenders kind of guy. You shoot several images, but you need a double check, so you shoot a gray card exposure. Now you open all the images in Camera Raw, select the white balance tool, and click on the gray card image. You've now rebalanced all the images. If your original custom white balance was correct, you should see little to no change. If you're seeing consistent significant change, then your custom white balance might be off. If you're seeing little to no change but you don't like the color you're seeing on the monitor, your monitor's more than likely the issue, so you should avoid making subjective color adjustments to your images. This technique obviously doesn't work when your images were exposed with an auto white balance setting because the camera looks at each image differently. These days when you're looking at your image, you're more than likely looking at an LCD screen. Long gone are the days when I used to sit in a dim room looking at my 22-inch calibrated Sony CRT. Nowadays, LCD screens are so bright, they can be set up to function in a well-lit environment. But it's still important that the light in your room be color balanced and that the color temp and profile of your monitor be set properly before you start going crazy with color adjustments. Otherwise, rely on your gray card reference data. This and much more about color managed workflow is properly covered in the real-world color management book that I've shown in the beginning of this video. In the next video in this series, I'll be covering some options for lighting.